Hi, everybody. John Langan here, and I'm coming to talk to you for just a couple of minutes about my dear friend, Laird Barron. Patrick and Brennan have graciously agreed, actually, to have invited me, really, onto their podcast just for a minute so I can talk to you about Laird. I know a lot of you are concerned about him and want to know what's going on and what you can do. Laird's been very sick, as some of you know, for the last 3 months, and it finally got to the point that he went to the emergency room the other night. I went with him along with his partner, Jessica. He was admitted. He's in a hospital room right now, getting excellent care, and he is very sick. There are a lot of different things going on with him. Laird's a very private guy, and so I don't feel at liberty to discuss all of them. I can tell you that he's getting the conditions he's afflicted with are treatable, and he's getting treatment for them, and he's improving. But there are some things that immediately need to be taken care of, and then there are some things that are going to require longer-term treatment. This is it's a big deal, and thank God that he went to the emergency room and didn't let it go any longer. The big wrinkle in all of this is that Laird doesn't have health insurance and supports himself purely through his writing. If you know the American health system, you know that not having insurance is really bad. And it's one thing not to have insurance and to get somewhat sick when you're 20. It's another thing when you're no longer 20. None of us are as young as we used to be. So we're working to do a number of things. One is to help to defray the medical costs that Laird has already incurred. Also to have an eye towards the medical costs that he's going to incur. Ultimately, we would like to get him set up with some kind of health insurance. It would be great if moving ahead he was covered, so the costs for the future treatments that he needs will be provided for. A number of you have contacted me and have said, "What can I do? I'd love to contribute money. What can I?" So Mike Davis and myself set up a GoFundMe for Laird. I say myself, but really Mike did all the work, and he deserves full credit for that. The response right now at 10:02 in the evening, my time, Eastern Standard Time, has been astonishing. People have been amazingly generous, and people have given. There has been no donation too small. People have given $5. People have given a lot more than $5. But you know what? Every little penny counts, because it's going towards helping out Laird and helping him in this situation. And not just the money, but the expressions of support that people have put out there for Laird, the expressions of gratitude for his work. They're really heartwarming. He's still a little out of it at times, so it's difficult to read everything to him. So I've just been, when I go to visit him, I've been passing along, "Hey, this person says that," and obviously he's quite moved by that. So I guess what I would say is thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for your tremendous generosity when it comes to the Kickstarter. If you find it within your means and your inclination to continue to contribute to it, that's terrific. At the very least, if you could spread the word, continue to share news of the Kickstarter, that would be terrific. We're going to get through Laird. We're going to get Laird through this. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some persistence. It's going to take some grit. But Laird has persistence and grit. He's the stubbornest person I know, which is part of the reason that we're here. But we're going to use that. We're going to turn that around and use that for good. And we're going to get him better. And he's going to continue. He has some really exciting projects, like sort of in process for the next year. And those are going to come out, and there's going to be more. He's going to do more stuff as well. So thanks so much. Love, gratitude, thanks to everybody. And I'll continue to update on Twitter as I know things, and social media, in general, as I learn things. But thanks again for all your help and for all your good wishes and support for Laird. And hang in there. And thanks to Patrick and even Brennan for lending their support to this and letting me come on here.
What's up, Jordan? What is up, Eli? How are you, gentlemen? How are y'all?
Hey,
Excellent.
I hear
I'm
that
good.
call coming out, Jordan.
It's true. It creeps
Yeah,
out every once in a while.
every time you get around me, man,
Sure, you hadn't even talked yet. I just saw your beard and instantly I started.
That's a magnificent beard. That is a enviable beard, my friend.
you're on your way, man.
I'm
You're on
trying.
your way.
I got nothing else.
When you're bald and hairy everywhere else, you gotta at least
You
grow
gotta
out.
work with what you got.
Yeah.
I don't think I know this, Jordan. I somehow I didn't look into where you're from. Where are you from?
I'm from Springfield, Missouri, which is like
Oh,
what's called the Queen City of the Ozarks. It's
yep.
like the big city of the Ozarks. So it's like where the people from the surrounding towns come and they think it's awesome, and we all hate living there or hated
Gas
living there.
Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah, it's the birthplace of Bass Pro Shop.
Welcome to another episode of Dead Headspace. Erica could not join us. She will be back next week. I am your host, Patrick R. McDonough, here always with my host, friend, and pal, Brennan LaFaro. Say hello, Brennan.
Hello, everybody.
And today we are joined by guest host Eli Cranor. He is the author of a magnificent book, Don't Know Tough. The light kind of fucks with that. Eli, say hello, sir.
Hello, hello. Glad to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's so cool, man. We're going to introduce the guest in 1 second, but it's so cool because I listened to the audio version of Don't Know Tough and how you narrate, you're part of the narrator. It's just really neat, kind of just hearing you say other stuff live. That was a crazy book.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, that whole audiobook thing was a trip and a half, and I'm getting ready to Saturday. I'm doing the Ozark Dogs. So this is Binks. So everybody say hello to Mr. Binks of Hocus Pocus fame, Thackeray Binks.
Awesome. That's
So yeah.
great.
But yeah, no, the audiobook was great, man. And it's a hell of a lot of stuff, but I don't know. My deal on all that is like Arkansas is its own animal, like so many of even different regions in Arkansas. And I guess I'm just too much of a control freak to let somebody from Texas fucking try and do an Arkansas accent or have that stuff. So for now, that's why I keep sitting down in the chair for way too many hours and doing it.
I get it. And we won't dive into this too much right now, but I get it as being from Massachusetts, hearing people doing Boston accent, it's laughable many of the times. I totally got it. We're joined again, a returning guest, Jordan Harper. He is the author. We're going to be talking about Everybody Knows, which did you mean to do this, Jordan? Everybody knows Jordan Harper. If you look at the spine on the side,
I wish I was that clever. I'm not that clever, but you're right. It works as a slogan, a billboard for me. And isn't that what a book is at the end of the day? Just a billboard for me.
yeah, it really is. And I saw that yesterday. I don't know how it took me a little while, but I saw them like, yeah, that's kind of cool. His sequel should be Everybody Loves Jordan Harper because I don't see how that would be untrue. Brennan, I am going to throw the mic to you in a second. I'm just going to mention that last time you were on was episode 124, that's season 2, that aired November 8th, 2021. You can go any way you want. What have you been up to since then? And then Brennan jump in or Eli jump in at any point.
I don't know if y'all are like this too. And there was another y'all because Eli's here and I'm degrading uh, back to my primal state. But time means nothing to me anymore. If you'd asked me what year I had been on Dead Headspace, I wouldn't have been able to tell you at all. I would possibly 2018, possibly earlier this year, because time doesn't mean anything to me at all anymore. So what have I been up to? I've been writing Everybody Knows is a lot of it and finishing The Last King of California up and getting that out in the UK. But most of my creative energy, which is most of my energy, has been going into this book and then now writing hopefully the next one. But yeah, it's my life is as it were. I'm still here in Los Angeles. I live here in beautiful Eagle Rock in Los Angeles, and got myself a couch. I moved into a new office here, and I thought, oh man, I'm gonna be so cool. I'm not even gonna have a desk. I'm just gonna have a sofa and this little table I can put my laptop on. Terrible call. So I'm buying a desk soon. But trying to be, I don't know if I think it's bohemian or something to not have a desk.
What's that framed bunch of signatures? I'm guessing from one of your shows.
Yeah, that is the title page to the LA Confidential pilot, and it's signed by the cast and director and executive producers. So yeah, there's Walton Goggins there at the top, and some other very cool people who signed that. And so I have actually above it, if I can crank this up here, that is a mock-up of a Hush Hush magazine with Walton Goggins playing Jack Vincennes. It was used in the pilot. It was there's a storyline in the books about Jack Vincennes being shot in a gunfight out in Malibu, where he actually guns down a couple of innocent people. And we were going to do that storyline, so we had a moment where he's at the Hush Hush offices and he stops and looks at this magazine cover. And so I have a fake Hush Hush magazine, which is like one of my absolute prized possessions there.
That's cool. Actually, I'm gonna go to Eli first. Eli, what'd you think about Everybody Knows, or really the other books by Jordan? Pick one and roll with it, man.
Yeah, man. Well, I'll just start with Jordan in general. Like, Jordan, what was it? 2018, 2017? She Ride Shotgun came out.
2017, yeah.
2017, yeah. So that it timed up like right when I was trying to get serious about writing. And She Rides Shotgun, I think I found it because of the Edgar. And I just, it was the first thing that I had read, because I didn't cut my teeth on crime or mystery or any of that. It was all the Southern grit lit, the Harry Crews, the Larry Browns, the all of that sort of scene. And when I read that, I don't know, it was just, it completely blew me away. And since then, and this isn't about either one of the books, so I'll get to that, but just Jordan, I mean, just to be like super fanboy, man. I mean, like all of the Welcome to the Hammer Party, I got to interview Jordan for a shop talk. I mean, behind me here, this is my crude man cave version of a spirit board for what I'm working on now. I mean, there's so much of the stuff that I've watched Jordan do or I've heard him talk about that has influenced me, man. So it's his those two books for me are just like, I read Everybody Knows in like a 24-hour span when I first got the arc. And I think I said, like, my thing was that it really did, like, it changed the way I view America, like the whole country, more so than anything I can remember in recent history. Just being from Butthole, Arkansas, I mean, we're talking, you might as well be talking like science fiction, with the stuff he's taken on in that book. But it made sense, it made sense even to a dude like me, who, that's, like I said, another world away. And then there's always just the language. I mean, I've got, when I was really heavy on my fanboy stuff with Jordan, I used to like take just lines out of She Rides Shotgun and like just tweet them, just constantly like tweet them at him, like back in like 2018 or 2019. I was just showing all my favorite lines. So, I mean, both books are just dog-eared to hell and marked all over. And yeah, man. So that's what Everybody Knows did for me. Maybe that She Rides Shotgun didn't do, like, not like they're two different things, but Everybody Knows seemed to transcend because it was taken on and it was teaching me something about where we are in this country that I had never even considered or thought of.
This podcast is awesome.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Thank you, Eli. That's awesome. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Brennan, jump in, buddy.
So, I'd love to like offer up compliments, but I just don't feel like I can top it. Changed the way I view America. But no, I totally get what you're saying, Eli, because it's totally reliant on this absolutely secret world that you could be living in, LA, and be surrounded by it and yet unaware that all of this is happening. It could just, it's all behind the scenes. And the ability to kind of like weave that world and just have this, I can't think of a better word, of depravity. Obviously, we have branched out into crime and basically anything that we would consider dark fiction. But we started as a horror podcast, and we read a lot of books and we see a lot of movies that, make you go, what the fuck? And this one does it in such a different way because it just plumbs the absolute depths that people can go to. And it's wild. So if there's a question buried in here, I'm kind of curious about what research or what went into crafting a character who is a black bag publicist.
Well, I mean, a lot of it comes down to May is a person who has a lot of the same reservations that I do. They're just very heightened and big. So, a lot of May's feelings about Hollywood and the way she sees the world come from me working in Hollywood for 14 years, and obviously in a very different place. But to me, that's what makes good fiction, is you take the things that are going on in your life and you find a way to tell them in a bigger, pulpier, louder way. And so, look, a lot of it to me is about how hard it is to transmit the way power actually operates in the world. And crime fiction is very easy to go to like the most brutal, base way that power works, which is a guy takes a gun and, marches people around, and that's what power is. But like the power that you experience in Hollywood is very soft and invisible a lot of the ways. And that's why I was so concerned with like unsaid things and the idea that like it's not always somebody yelling. It's about somebody putting somebody in a room and just knowing, well, they don't want to get fired, so they're going to do what I want them to do, as opposed to like smoky, rooms where people are plotting out conspiracies in really, bold ways. It's usually people who are put in places who are going to do the right thing, right being in quotation marks. And so that was like the base I was working off of, is just 14 years of having seen, been in, and I think this is a line I use in the book, and you get the feeling of like, oh, this is what it would be like to work in a nuclear power plant that was leaking into the groundwater. Like, it's not that everybody is sitting around and cackling. They feel really bad about what they're doing, but they're doing it anyway. And I think that was a lot of it, and a lot of the research was literally just, writing down every scandal that ever popped up that I could find, and I have a very, very long database because it's, coming into the next book as well. And then I did actually sit down with a crisis manager, a person who had represented a very, very bad man in Hollywood and was willing to sit down and talk to me about it. And they said a few things that were so on the nose evil that I couldn't put them in the book. But the one thing that they said that I know got in the book, there's a few things, but one of them that I remember very clearly was the line, "I'm not saying the truth isn't important, it just doesn't matter," which is something somebody actually said to me. And you just, so those people are real. And I think if there's a difference between May and the people that I ran into, is that May does feel bad about what she does. And a lot of the people I talked to were like, it's a job. You do your job. That's what it is. So, I think, that's a long way to say what the research was, but like, it was just literally just emptying the tank of 14 years of me living in Los Angeles and going from being an outsider to somebody who now feels like I am, if not from Los Angeles, I am of Los Angeles at this point. So that was a lot of it too.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love May as a character. She's so like, if I had to boil it down to a word, she's cool. Like, she's very like street smart, and I don't want to say unflappable, but you do get that sense from, living inside her head, is just that there's very little that you can throw at her that she can't, in a, pretty quick amount of time, think her way through. And it's just a result of being kind of like branded by this environment. Patrick, I want to throw it to you because Eli and I kind of shared our thoughts on it. What'd you like?
Well, I love the book, but I thought it felt at times it had a vibe of Raymond Chandler book. It had the vibes of early to mid 20th century noir or crime or novel detective novel, but it's set in contemporary times. And I say that because the way that there were certain guys that talked about how I think this was I don't know if this was said to May or not. I can't remember. I don't have the line written down or in front of me, but it was basically that you can do the very best job in the entire world. And you can be on point for everything and work your ass off. But at the end of the day, all you'll get in reward is to be someone's gopher, essentially. That's a very long-winded paraphrase, but basically he was saying that it's I'm not trying to go on a rant about this, but it was patriarchal, still is. And I'm no insider with how Hollywood works, but it was really sad, because that their dreams are the same as some of ours. That's really all I got to say about it. It was a excellent book because it does what good fiction does. And my thing is you hold a mirror up to the world and you show all the ugliness, and you leave it up for everyone else to say if they like it or not, but you're still going to show that ugliness and not hold back. So I think you did a good job with that again.
Thank you. That line that you're talking about is actually something I plagiarized from myself. It's a speech from the LA Confidential pilot that Jack Vincennes gives to Ed Exley in a scene. He gives him the exact same speech, and I was like, and it's totally mine. None of it came from Elroy. So I was like, I like this speech too much, and I got to use it for something, So I was able to work that in. But I do think Hollywood really isn't that different than any place else. Like I said, I do think it's just about power and what power does to people and what people will do if they're allowed to. Certain people, and that I'm just deeply suspicious of power in any situation, and people who want it and people who want authority over other people. And I try and get that across that as much as I can, that like that it's good to care about other people, and I'm not like I don't think we're all just individual atoms floating through the world, but you have to be really suspicious of people who when power accrues around them, because I think at some point you just stop being a person the way other people are. Like is a really, really, really famous person, like they can't go out in the world and interact with other people. It's like they've lost the ability to, and I'm fascinated with those things. And it's just Hollywood has it bigger and louder, and it's kind of more day glow than other people. To jump way back to Eli, well, first of all, to jump all the way back, Eli, congratulations on your Edgar nomination that you got today.
Yeah, man.
I know that this isn't going to air the day that we record it, but Eli is very deserving first Edgar nominee. Join the club, man. Join the club.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you.
You're welcome. But when you said it was like a sci-fi novel to you, it's interesting you said that, because for this next one, which is set in the same world as everybody knows, a part of my spirit board was talking about how I wanted it to feel like Neuromancer. I wanted to almost feel like a sci-fi novel. I want to push LA to a place that is so at the cutting edge. And like when you're walking through Neuromancer, or you're reading Neuromancer and the characters are walking through it, every page there's some crazy weird thing that you might not even know what it is, but it just really emphasizes what a strange world that they're walking through. And I'm just like, I'm trying to keep that tone of like, how would you write LA today like it was a cyberpunk novel? And so I think that's a really apt way of putting it. So I like that.
Yeah, man. Well, and I wanted to take you back to Missouri with this. I'm going to read this little snippet here. Because if this doesn't went on, for those of you that don't know, Jordan is an Ozarks boy at heart. So here's this bit from May. She stripped down this girl named Mandy Mae Pruitt, this girl from the Ozarks who made out with wild boys with mean eyes and big trucks. She burned the shit kicker twang from her voice. She sliced off her first name. She took on being called by her middle name the way she took on harsh bangs and cat-eye makeup and skinny emo boyfriends. She sewed new parts onto her to see what would fit. And dude, I mean, there's so much. I mean, and I wanted to, so I don't want to make this into a craft deal because we've talked craft a whole lot, but I am what always blows me away with you, and I don't even know if there's not a great example in there, but I know like noses like red balloon asses, or noses. Do you remember
red like baboon asses?
Yeah, that's a great line.
And Full Metal Tetris. There's these little, just fucking, like, when I read them, like, they're so spot on and they're so concise. And my question, I guess, is, I know we've talked about your process and we've talked about, how you do it, but those, do you keep those? Do you see those out on the street on a daily basis and like keep those, like, or do those come in the flow?
I think that, well, in the flow is a tricky position because not a lot of them come out of the first drafts. I think it does, to talk about my process. I rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. So like, one thing nobody ever says about my prose is it feels like, wow, this just pours out of you. Like, it is, I think, pretty clear that I work this, and so they accrue. I would say they accrue kind of piece by piece, and I'm not like being cutesy or anything when I say like my rough drafts are truly terrible, and there might be 10% of the book in my rough drafts, but like I rewrite and I rewrite and I rewrite, and I try to quit when I feel like I'm not making it any better. But a lot of that stuff, I was actually at the shopping center today where I came up with the term Full Metal Tetris for valet parking, and it's this strip mall in Koreatown which has all these great restaurants in them, and I intentionally put Chris's apartment where it's overlooking the strip mall because it's like the epicenter of what I think is the best food neighborhood in LA and maybe the best food neighborhood in America, and it's just these guys, they just drive cars like so fast in this tiny little parking lot, and these valet parkers are so good. And so again, it's like hard to say like when did I come up with the term Full Metal Tetris, but it is like I think like all of us, you try and train your brain to see those things, but I don't keep like a notebook of things like that. It's more like it's just closer to in the flow. It's just my flow takes draft after draft after draft.
Yeah, well, and playing back on that bit I read about May and burning the shit kicker at Twang and leaving the Ozarks, being in LA, and you've been there for a long time now, do you find that, and I think I read this maybe in the big feature thing, but like, do you still feel like you see LA through a foreigner's eyes, like through Ozark eyes, or through like being there? Are you still seeing things differently, like catching on to things? Because I know for me, like still I live in my hometown, and I have to really pay attention to make sure that I'm not missing those things. And how is that for you, like being a transplant, but a long-term transplant, to this sci-fi world?
Well, I think that the fact that I'm both is what makes it work. Like, I think if you first come to LA, I think you write a very surface level, like there's like the baldest worst version of this book, which is like everybody's so evil and they're doing cocaine and there are palm trees and it's sunny, but there's evil underneath. And like, that's all in the book for sure. But like, you get more nuance and you just start to pick out, more detail. But I do think that, I am not from here. And I think there is a very, like, again, stubborn, independent type of viewpoint that comes from the Ozarks that very well, and there is an idealism in a weird way, and that makes swallowing a lot of the stuff that we do here very difficult. That like, I'm not a violent guy. I'm going to tell a story that makes it sound like I'm not a tough guy, but I come from the Ozarks, and I at one point in my career, I used to work with a very unpleasant man, and I would get just so anxious and so like just I couldn't even talk when I was around this guy, a real powerful, rich asshole. And but a big turning point for me, and again, I'm not a tough guy, but like was the understanding that I was jammed up, not because I was scared of him, although I was a little, but I was more scared about me and what I felt like I should do when somebody treats you a certain way that, you know, and when I say I'd never been talked to that way, it's not that I'm some scary guy. It's just like, boy, and like I got picked on in high school, but you know, as an adult, you don't get talked to in a certain way in the Ozarks because people will punch you or you know, or worse. And again, that's just baked in. I'm not a guy who goes around throwing punches, but like that instinct, that idea that like, oh, if somebody talks to you this way, you don't accept it. And then in Hollywood, yes, you do, because the whole system spins around these people, you know, and you like your job and you like your money. And, you know, like I had a grandfather who was fired from a bakery because he broke the foreman's jaw, you know, and that's the Ozarks. And and you know, I'm really trying to, like, I don't go around doing that, but that's in there. And I think that position that I think May has, which is just enough distance to know that this is all really wrong. And by the way, I'm not saying the Ozarks is a more morally pure place than it's not. It's, you know, it's got many of its own issues, but like, I think that outsider status kind of helps, you know, a thing that if I get close to idealism in the novel, a lot of people think it's very dark, but I've also heard people say it's not dark enough because there's hope at the end, and that's not noir. And is that there's just a thing that May thinks that I think very strongly, which is it's not supposed to be this way. And I don't mean just LA, I mean everything. Like everything right now, it's not supposed to be the way it is. And some people will try and say, well, this is the only way it could be. Like if you want it to be different, you're a fool or an idiot or something like that. And I very strongly don't believe that. I don't know how much that has to do with the Ozarks, but like it's certainly, I think the benefit of coming to a place is that you get to see the way that I secretly think teenagers are right about the world. You know, like teenagers who get very snotty about how dumb adults are. I think they're all correct. And we all tell ourselves that they're wrong because we have all sold out. We've all made our choices and our you know, and we've accepted the world because the alternative is very scary. But like, and much like teenagers are newcomers to the world, where, you know, to be a newcomer to a place, I think can give you a deeper insight sometimes than the place you've never left, you know?
Yeah. Well, what you just said there about teenagers and how, you know, eventually they get it beaten out of them. They get beaten into an adult. My dad taught elementary school art for forever. And just yesterday, I don't even know what we were talking about, but it's along these same lines. He was like, you know, there's that Van Gogh quote, or maybe it was Picasso, said, you know, we all have an artist in us until it gets beaten out of us. And then he kind of chuckled and he was like, and man, I beat it out of a lot of kids. I wanted them coloring in the lines. I wanted them cutting, you know, this exact straight way. I mean, that's exactly what you're saying.
Eli, I want to go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, no, I was just going to throw out, this is just almost trivia more than anything, but that it's a thing about May's character, and just is you talked when you read that excerpt about how her middle name is May, her first name is Mandy, and the next part of that is that she adopts a dog and she names the dog Mandy, and that is 100% stolen from Cary Grant. Cary Grant real name was Archibald Leach, and after he became Cary Grant and became famous, he got a dog and he named that dog Archibald Leach. And I just think that is so fascinating and such a weird thing for someone to do. And it just, so much of the novel is about the masks people put on and how they grow to your skin. And I just love that.
What's the line? Isn't there a line about what she says about like how that's like a part of her? Or am I misremembering that? Or like,
no, I can't, I think it just said like, I mean, it explains that she does that she names the dog, she gives the dog her name and then treats it really well and tries to pamper it. And then I think the line after that is, you know, the rules say never ask why or something like
Yeah.
that. It's something like
Yeah,
never
that's
look
it.
too close at it, or never
Yeah,
ask.
yeah. That's weird as fuck. I named my dog my name, but don't ask. You know,
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
look at,
I'm not going to look at this too closely.
Yeah.
Don't psychoanalyze it.
Yeah, but Patrick, you were going to ask something, and I cut you off. But like,
Eli touched on something really interesting. You said you said you still live in your hometown.
yeah.
Okay, so if I never met my wife, I'd probably still be what I always thought I'd be, a townie in a small town between pretty much in the middle point of Boston and Providence. But I live in Jersey now. I have been here since 2015. So it's been a while. And I bring that up because when I go back to my home state, as you can tell, I don't have an accent, never have, don't know why. My parents do. My wife can't understand them a lot of the times because of the thickness of their accent. But it's like people have a lot of different accents in this area. I'm right near Atlantic City, so it's like it's a mixed bag. And when I go back home, most people have a very heavy Boston accent. I kind of like sit back, just listen, and I talk a lot, but I listen and I just kind of chuckle myself because it's weird. It's a weird place to be in, Jordan, and I'm sure you could relate because you go back home, it's your home, but it's not. But then you go back where your home is, and it's your home again. It's not. It's weird, and it kind of takes you out to do what Eli mentioned, which is you got to pay close attention. And I heard this a while ago when I started really writing. So we're talking 8-9 years ago. And it was that as a writer, when you look at the world as someone would write it, or if you're looking through the narrator's eyes, you're thinking of what you see and how would you describe that in the written word. And I think, Eli, again, how you said that you got to pay close attention this is for newer writers or for maybe someone that's been doing it a while and spinning their wheels and just it's not working. One piece of advice that worked for me was paying attention as if you're the narrator, as if you're literally thinking, how would I write how that person just express themselves, or how are they moving like their fingers? Do they have a twitch? Something small and natural that you won't think about if you weren't trying to figure out the details of it. So there's no question there. I just wanted to point that out, Eli. That was really interesting. I'm going to jump ahead to telling a story through foreigner's eyes. It's another lesson that I heard when you're kind of introducing a new world like you did with Everybody Knows, Jordan. You're introducing it to a new audience. So you're telling it through someone that's, I guess, a native to that area, but the way you write it is introducing it without doing a lot of long paragraphs of diving into an overload of data. I think that's a really excellent way to kind of tell your story. And I'm jumping all over the place, but before we started recording, we were talking about film versus book world. You have experience in both. I'm wondering what the differences are and what are the similarities.
well, I mean, the big difference, and there are, this is a blanket statement, and there are exceptions to this, is that people complain about publishing, but at the end of the day, there's a general agreement that the book is yours. You are the creative font that created that book. And therefore, even if they're keeping most of the money or whatever, it still belongs to you in a very basic way. And, editors will give you notes. Maybe if it was a really big argument, they might choose not to publish the book. But at the end of the day, it's your book. You're going to do what you want to do. And, the money involved in Hollywood is so much greater that you lose that. There are exceptions to that, but they're getting rarer. But it's much more work for hire. Even something that feels very creative and free in Hollywood probably has a level of corporate interference that people in the book world would just blanch at. You'd get like, no, this is my book. You don't, the kind of note of like, does it have to be football, Eli? Couldn't it be a girls volleyball team? The kind of suggestions that nobody would give an author, you get all the time. And I have watched shows that my friends are developing transform from one concept and then like shift it 10%, and then shift it 10%, and then shift it 10%. And then 3 years later, you can't tell it's the same show. It's not, the main character is different, the topic is different, the tone is different. And those kind of things, as far as I can tell, don't happen in publishing. So I do think, as much as people bemoan publishing feeling like a business, and it absolutely is, it pales in comparison to what happens in Hollywood. And I think that's a really big part of it.
That's a good point about the business aspect. We're all artists, but it's interesting seeing how. So I mean, my experience, this is purely off of random people on Twitter. Forever I've seen them talk about how basically they confuse art with business. Business is I think it was Jonathan Mayberry, a writer, that described it as writing is art, publishing is a business. And at the end of the day, yeah, you got to make some sacrifices if you want to make, because they're paying for all this shit so you can get that book out there. I don't know how else to word this, but are there more prima donnas in the film world than in the book world?
I mean, I think that's probably true. I think that, look, there are exceptions to this. There are people in the book world who are worth fabulous amounts of money. But that's much more, there's just way more money washing around Hollywood. And so money allows people to be prima donnas in a way that publishing doesn't. And maybe it was different 40 years ago when we had the idea of like celebrity authors, when people like Bret Easton Ellis or Tom Wolfe, or people like that who were not just like famous amongst readers but were famous. It was probably a very different scene then, and I just feel like in publishing now, the truth is very, very few people make a living as authors, and the people on the other side of the table, the editors and their assistants, they're not driving to work in Maseratis. So people involved in the book world tend to be people who love books, and they're really in it for that. And again, that's not to say that they can't be awful or anything like that. And I think there are people in Hollywood who love movies and just want to do it for the love of it. That absolutely exists, but it's more diluted, and there are more people who just want money, or just want the power, or just want the access to like sex that is available here, that I don't think is available in the publishing world. And again, it's a pool of vulnerable people who are very ripe for exploitation, and that just attracts a very nasty type of person. And again, it's not the only type of person who comes here, but it's absolutely a factor.
I want to point out one thing, and then Brennan, jump in. Eli, the way you describe Everybody Knows, to me, just conjured up images of the movie Sling Blade, because it's based in LA, and that's a sci-fi movie. I just thought like that'd be really interesting to see Jordan go into like a sci-fi with a crime bent to it. I could see it happening, but now I want that, and I'm not sure he's going to write that, but I hope you do, Jordan.
Well, I mean, this next one is not sci-fi, other than my just kind of basic belief that we are living in a sci-fi world right now.
We are.
Yeah. And I'd say, I mean, this is going way off from what you're saying, but I think this chat AI stuff is going to change the world in ways we don't even begin to understand yet. I think there's a chance it's going to totally destroy the internet. I think because it's just, there are going to be chatbots that just flood everything all the time, and God knows where else they'll pop up. But Eli, it looks like you were going to.
He raised his hand.
Yeah, I did. Well, I'm a teacher, and I teach virtually. And just this, it's like, even what you're saying has, we're the last to get a lot of things in Arkansas, but we had a professional development meeting where the whole point of this meeting was they were talking about that students were feeding the Macbeth study guide questions into the AI bots and just getting answers. And the problem is that when you run it through like the plagiarism checker, it doesn't come up. It's not published online somewhere, so it's clean.
Right.
And And then the end of the meeting was, all these teachers are like, well, what do we do? What are we going to do? Because like you got a kid who has like a 5th grade reading level who then submits these, open response that he didn't write.
Mm-hmm.
And the administrators were just like, you just need to grade it. Like just great, because they had no, like, they were like, you can't blame them or you can't prove what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fucking crazy, man.
It's all over, right? It's just like the era of writing papers. It'll just be you can only write papers in class under the eye of a teacher
on a sheet of paper. Jordan, we're the last, the long hand, the last remaining stronghold.
I wrote this story, a short story. It was published this year in anthology, or last year. Today it is 2023. I forgot. Last year, and it has everything to do with what you guys are talking about. Basically, my idea came from, I believe it was a Chuck Palahniuk interview where he's talking about how there's dead profiles, where basically, like if we were to die, there's enough of us where someone could log that data and recreate us. They're called deep fakes. They're a real thing now, and they're getting better every day. But basically, what I wrote was that eventually the dead profiles would exponentially overrun every living profile like us. We are living humans with profiles. But what happens when you die? In your book, Jordan, you said something interesting that just reminded me of this. You have a graveyard in your cell phone. You got a bunch of dead numbers. That struck with me because of what we're talking about, because I think of that stuff too. But basically what I wrote was eventually they had their own everything. They had their own games. They had their own, Olympics, blah, 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 all that. And they end up ruling all the industries. It's scary. Don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I just thought that kind of was applicable, and I wanted to throw that out there. It's a terrifying thing.
Well, I mean, that thing about do you guys delete dead people out of your phone?
I don't. I haven't deleted a number in years. I got numbers from people that I stopped talking to.
Well, I mean, if you ever actually, because you very rarely just really scroll and look through your contacts on your phone.
Yeah.
But like you're right in that, like probably 50% of the people are people that are not in your life anymore in a meaningful way. And okay, you don't delete those, but then you hit the dead people and you go, oh, wait, like, am I really going to delete grandma's number from my phone? Like that feels like so sad. But like, again, as time goes on, like you're saying, like the weight of your phone is going to head towards, it's like 70% dead people in here now. Like, I don't know. We never talk about stuff like that, but it's like, surely that means something. I don't know.
Black Mirror, if you guys haven't seen it or listeners haven't seen it, it's a good show. It's definitely worth watching. It's terrifying. It's basically deals with technology that makes people look like fucking idiots because it destroys us in all sorts of fucked up ways. If I was an alien, that's how I would destroy an entire world. I would give them a shiny toy. Think about, like, I don't know how intelligent cavemen were. They were probably a lot smarter than we give them credit for, but I would give them something like some kind of weapon that if you press this button, it's going to just fuck you up and kill you. And maybe that's what we got with the internet. And that's a crazy conspiracy. I'm not saying I believe in it, but if I were an alien, that's how you divide and conquer.
Yeah. It's we have. I mean, this thing of like, what is it, fission or fusion that they say that we're going to have clean energy that's going to be super cheap, and that sounds awesome, and maybe it'll help us stop global warming or something. But God knows what happens when everybody has access to a nuclear power plant's worth of electricity all the time.
Yeah, that was a month or two ago that they discovered that. That was pretty smart to the point where I didn't totally understand it all. So
me neither.
I'm gonna pull us back with a question, or actually coming from Scott Blackburn, a fellow crime writer. He said, I love when authors discuss what set their first published novel apart from earlier manuscripts that didn't quite make it. So I'd like to actually throw that to you, Jordan, then you, Eli.
I have one novel that I wrote early on called Dirt Nap Avenue. And I wrote it right after I left St. Louis, but it was about St. Louis organized crime and about a guy who was from such a criminal family that his name was Jesse and his older brother's name was Frank. And the beginning of the novel, his brother takes him out to this old bridge with two people who owe them some money, but like a very square couple who owe them money. And his brother like brutally murders both of these people, and his Jesse doesn't understand why, and that is like the thing that drives the novel. And what he comes to understand is that his father, who's known as the Pope of St. Louis because they kind of run the town, is dying. And this is his brother's way of asserting that, like, I'm the crazy one. I'm the one who's going to rule this. I'm going to like basically frighten my brother into taking over. And then it turns into a war between the brothers. And the only person I think besides me who's read it is Jedediah Ayers. And he liked it a lot more than I did. And it was a first novel. There's a lot of stuff in there that I'm embarrassed about now that like I wouldn't have done. And I had it was actually how I met Nat Sobel. Was I guess he's the other person who read it. He read several drafts of it. We went back and forth. And eventually, after doing notes with him for a while, I just went, I'm sorry, this novel isn't supposed to be published. It's not good enough, and put it away. And then literally 7 years later, started working with Nat again and sold Love and Other Wounds and She Rides Shotgun. But like that's how long the gap was. I'd written it that early. And it, it was just very different with it. When I pitch it to you guys now, it seems like a very clean, clear novel, but it was way messier than that. And as opposed to She Rides Shotgun, which is just, once I had the idea, I'm like, yeah, that's a novel. I get it. I know what that is. It's a novel. So I think it, and then I want to hear Eli's answer for sure too. But I will say, this is a little related, that sometimes in our current like grind culture, inspiration is really poo-pooed, and it's just, you just show up and do the work every day. And if you're inspired, it doesn't matter. If you're not, it doesn't matter. I think it matters. I really do. I think when you're inspired and when you're not. And it's not an excuse to never do work when you're not inspired. But man, trying to grind stuff out, I can tell the difference between the stuff I grind out and the stuff where I'm like, no, like everybody knows when I had the idea for it, I was like, this is my next book and it's going to work because nobody else is in this field. I'm very excited about it. And I think Dirt Nap Avenue, which was also the other title of it, was The Cool Hand War, which I think is also a good title. I think I just was writing it to try and write a novel. I just really, and I was too young. I was like in my 20s, and like that's very young to try and write a crime novel. I think
I was just gonna say that's a great point. Yeah, I haven't heard anyone say that, but that's really interesting that you do say that.
I mean, I think maybe if I'd written a novel about like my teenage, juvenile delinquency, I could have done it. But like trying to write about like, it just felt very, this is a guy who's watched a bunch of mob movies, But anyway, that's my answer. What about you, Eli?
Yeah, so Donut Tough was the 4th manuscript, and I am a product of 2 elementary school teachers, like straight middle class. And we do this thing also, like, because I'm a teacher, so like we see these studies, I guess, on like the psyche of students, like lower class students and the family values that they're instilled with, and middle class students and the family and then upper class students. And I remember seeing that one time and like seeing the middle class description, and it was like so spot on for my childhood, which was all like merit based. I mean, like as an athlete, I played all the different sports. It was all about, achieving something and accolades. So I agree with what Jordan's saying about like the inspiration, and you can tell the difference when you're excited. Like I write a weekly column for our state paper, and that's, like 700 words that I churn out every week. And I can tell the difference that those where one, I really got an idea, or where I'm like, man, fuck, I gotta, write something, and the same's true. I write every day. And it's just because it's like so ingrained in me, like that you better pay your penance today. Like if you want to, like that, I do it regardless. But Jordan's right. And what happened with Don't Know Tough was it was the fourth book. I had been a head coach for 2 years at 26 years old, and just been skull drugged, through small town politics and horrible home lives of kids. So I saw it, and I was on a lunch break when I'd first gotten out. Like, I was just an English teacher. I'd left coaching. And the whole first chapter of Don't Know Tough, I wrote it in like that hour-long lunch break, almost just like it stands now. And it worked with a short story. So I was sending short stories out, and it won a prize, and got published. It was kind of the first thing for me that grew any legs, like kind of stood up and started walking around on its own and do. So then I tried to write the book like all in Billy's voice, and it was just too much. It was too hard. It was too tough, too tough so it all kind of worked, from there. But I've told this on other stuff before. I mean, Don't Know Tough had over 200 agent rejections. I had an agent for a hot minute. I had all this bad advice, and well, agents would read books and would read that book and want me to change something and want me to do something, or it wasn't enough of a mystery, or it wasn't enough of literary. They didn't know where it fit. I wasn't even like pitching it as a mystery. And I had just about finally given up on it. And a buddy, William Boyle, Bill Boyle, read it. And he was like the first like real author. I mean, I had like, friends who were writers and stuff, but a guy who was out there publishing books, and he just fucking flipped for it. And it was the same book, like the same manuscript. Like, I'm different from Jordan in that I am like a grinder, and what it's out there, like I hate going back and changing stuff and revising stuff. So I write a lot of books. I write a lot of manuscripts. And it's kind of more just like 1 out of every 4 manuscripts is worth the shit, like that's my pain. That's my pain cross to bear. But Bill really liked it. And I had never even heard of Soho, and they were having that first novel contest where you didn't have to have an agent. And I sent it off to them. And it was like the first time in my life, and maybe the only time, where I really didn't, like, I was so burnt out and working on something else that I didn't think about it. And then there it came. So,
we're living in like a very bifurcated age right now when it comes to art and commerce. And I think what you're saying about people didn't know if it was literary or if it was a thriller, and I get that all the time, and I think it makes people confused about where I belong in the world. And the thing that drives me nuts about that is those are just the fucking marketing terms. That's all those are. And I find that, like, yeah, and somebody wants a very pure mystery book, like a series character who's going to do the same thing every book and buy my books. They're not going to like them. And if somebody is purely just wants literary stuff, they're not. But like, I feel like all of my favorite stuff in the world fits into that, tries to do both things at once. And it's very frustrating for you, not to turn this into my cross to bear. It's like, I don't know why everybody isn't trying to be literary and be a thriller at the same time. Like, I just feel like there's no conflict between those two ideas. And so why not do them both?
Like, write a good sentence and tell a good story.
Yeah. And make it exciting and make it fun and write it well and have it be smart. But it really,
why they're not doing it is because that's harder. It's one thing to write a lot of pretty sentences. That's its own challenge. It's another thing to write a very, speedy, energetic book. But to do both is pretty fucking hard.
It is hard, but I also think the real problem is it's hard for them to sell.
Yeah.
and people get confused and don't know where things go. And again, it comes down to like, you go through the bookstores, and like a lot of my favorite writers, like, is Megan Abbott going to be in the mystery section, or is she going to be in the literature section? It's bookstore by bookstore, right? Like, they don't know where to put her. And you go, well, but again, that's a commerce question. It's just a commerce question. And I think, and I said it before, I was talking to Sean Cosby on the phone last night, and we agreed, with like all due respect to the other, that Megan Abbott's the best writer working in crime fiction today. That's my opinion. But I think she has the same problem of like, I don't know if y'all watched the Dare Me TV show based on her novel Dare Me. I thought it was great. But I think it probably suffered from the same thing that her books, not that they suffer. Megan is very successful, but I think USA didn't know what it was. They're like, well, it's too exciting to be a prestige TV show, but it's too weird to be like a 90210 show. So like, we don't know what to do with it. And I don't know. I get very frustrated with that aspect of what we do.
Well, and I mean, do you still run into it too, Jordan? Like being where you are now, do you still hit it?
I think I do. I think that first of all, I think again, it's a hard thing to sell. I think my reputation is very good. I think that, that doesn't always translate into like into sales, which is fine. I'm very happy with where I am in life, but like, I think that until you are literally famous by the standards of what we do, I think that's when it's okay to be that way. I think Dennis Lehane, wrote a lot of books before he was really able to like full on Mystic River it. You know what I mean? And the difference now is that people on major presses don't have the same runway to write 7 novels before they write the Black Dahlia.
Yeah.
They don't get that runway because your past haunts you in publishing. That's something they don't tell you is that your past haunts you because we live in an algorithm world, and the algorithm isn't smart. It just says, well, last book sold X, so that this book will sell X, because it can't handle new information really. It can only, much like Chat AI, right? Chat AI can't produce anything new. It can only look at the past and say, oh well, this is what Macbeth said, but it can't write a new Macbeth. It's totally beyond this.
I can't produce Full Metal Tetris.
Well, I mean, man. Well, thank you. That is a really good phrase. It is. Like I said, I was there today. And I was watching these guys drive, and I was like, "How do you guys not ever hit a car?" Yeah. But like, we all have our own. You see so deep into people. That's what I think. Like, I think, and with like such a pure empathy, which is really important for the crime writing that you do, which is happening at the level of like meat and bone and dirt and so but thank you for the compliment. But like, I don't know, like I also think that it's not just happening in books. It's happening in movies where you can either get Babylon or you can get Avatar, but that realm of everything in the middle is kind of disappearing. You know what I mean? Like, there's, again, mostly making up the kind of movies I love. Like, y'all are big horror people. I like horror. Horror is like the one place where that's not true right now, where like there's all sorts of horror movies getting made right now, right? Like, but in other places, like the list of, they don't make movies like that anymore, is like so long. Sorry, I'm monologuing now, but like,
we want to hear you guys talk.
Yeah, well, I got another question, Patrick and Brendan, unless y'all got something. This is something you told me. I can't remember when you what you told me was it was shortly after Don't Know Tough had come out. It was like after I'd gotten home from the tour, and there was like, and you said to me, you told me that story about like going in and finding your book like in a bookstore. And you said, the book won't save you. And I remember that, man. And, and I've been so lucky. I'm so thankful for everything that Don't Know Tough is and is done, and this journey and all that. But I've held that close to my heart, like, and Megan, speaking of Megan Abbott, she put that quote on the other day on Twitter that was like, once you realize Hollywood is a fairy tale, like no one can ever hurt you.
Mm.
And so I'm going to read a couple more things from this, because it leads me to this overarching thing that I want to talk about appetite. Okay, so these rich French people eating these tiny birds in one bite, bones and all. The rich people put a napkin over their heads before they eat them. The idea is that the napkin stops God from being able to see their sin. We're a napkin, she thinks. A weird laughing jag threatens to spill out of her. We're the little napkin they use to hide themselves as they eat and eat and eat. And then my next thing on appetite is these men whose appetites drive them, men who have had all their desires fulfilled and don't understand why they don't feel full. They're always looking for something new, for something that no one else has ever had. Along the way, Eric turned his hobby into a second career. And so my question is, like you're into multiple books into your career now, and you're talking about like these different thoughts on literary fiction, crime fiction, where you fit in the market, how your book does, how it sells, the history. Man, I just want you, if you can, like to boil down like your paradigm, like your mindset, for being an author, like what is it, as you move forward in this, and we all have our own appetites, what's the mindset of an author who does it for a long ass time, because I think maybe that's the end goal, is to just keep doing it.
Well, I mean, I think that's right. There's a musician I like quite a bit, a man named Dan Barrett, who fronts several really excellent bands, and I saw him tweet something the other day, and it's very simple to the point of maybe even sounding banal, but it's just stuck with me so hard. And it was just, it will never be enough. Now what do you do? And I just hold on to that, because if there's one thing you learn being in Hollywood, is that there is no such thing as enough success, enough money. None of those things will ever fill you up. And and this, I haven't had any real ideas for Welcome to the Hammer Party recently. I feel like I've said a lot of what I needed to say to get me where I needed to be, because it was always a selfish act writing that. It was to me as much as it was for anybody else. And I'm glad other people responded to it, but like it was all for me at the end of the day. And I think I got to a place where I kind of, in a lot of ways, and I'm not perfect on this, but this is what I'm heading towards, or what I want to head towards, was that if you're functioning on all cylinders and you are chasing the things that interest you and therefore interest your subconscious, and you're executing those in a way that connects with some audience, you never connect with everybody, but that's connecting with the audience that you're trying to connect with, and you're producing, by doing that, you're going to produce only the work that only you can produce and nobody else could ever do. And you're doing it at the best level that you can manage while having a good life and all that, then that's it. That's it. Is there that everyone is unique. I mean, I know that's a cliche, but it's true. Everyone is unique. And there are books that only, like I said, I couldn't write Ozark Dogs. I couldn't write You Don't Know Tough, and you couldn't write Everybody Knows. And I think when I said earlier that everybody knows, when I thought of it, I felt right. Part of it was realizing there's nobody else who has my experience in Hollywood, who's a big fan of James Ellroy and understands the need for a modern day James Ellroy. There's literally nobody else who can write this book. Like this is my book to write. And so therefore it's the book, and I'm excited by it. I want to write it. And so that's what I'm supposed to do. And I don't know what other purpose I can have that makes sense, that, and to use like the cliches of the day, it's trying to move away from results oriented and moving towards process oriented, right? But like, he referenced it earlier that when She Rides Shotgun came out, I went to Barnes and Noble and like thought I would have this wonderful experience of like, my book is in Barnes and Noble, I'm whole and healed and everything is fine now. And instead I walked in, I said, there's 1 million books in here. Now what? And I'll not to be a bummer, but I'll be honest, the day that Everybody Knows came out, very similar experience. It's gotten great response. I'm very proud of it. It's great. But the day it comes out, you just go, oh, right. I'm not, dog's still hungry. I'm not healed. Got to keep going. Not that I wrote that day, by the way. I didn't write. I didn't write for like 2 weeks around the launch. But like, but I think that's okay too, because again, I'm trying to get away from like, it's not the number of books that you write, because that is, again, that's a money based thing at the end of the day. I want to write the best books I can write without being precious. But you know what I mean? I do think if you're writing the books that only you can write, that excite you, and you're doing it as best as you can for the audience, I don't know what else.
Yeah.
What else could there be, you know?
Yeah.
That's true, man. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, do you want to have a bunch of books that you're like, yeah, it's pretty good? Or do you want to have books that, like Eli, the way he talks about Don't Know Tough, the way that you talk about She Rides Shotgun, or Everybody Knows? I've written for 10 years. I've written probably, I lost count, but I've written over 8 books. Never mind all the short stories and all that. I've only got like 5 short stories published for a reason. Working on my craft. You know, I'm glad I didn't publish any of that, because I just, not to make this about me, but I just started working, picked up a novella I wrote in 2016, and it's actually fucking good now. I edited the shit out of it. But my point is, like you said, Jordan, I was 20 something when I first wrote that. Not that it's because I was in my 20s, but I, as a writer, wasn't ready. So that's a really good point. I'm glad that you brought that up, guys, about how, you know, basically you expressed it in how you talk about your own books or each other's books. You want to be prideful in your book. And you guys prove that if you believe in it enough, and you don't bend to make someone else happy just to get that yes from the first or 20th or 50th agent, publisher, whatever, if they're willing to change enough of your book, and you're not okay with it, don't do it, because you're not going to be happy with it no matter how much money you get at the end of the day.
No, I agree with that. Eli, did you watch, have you watched Mike White, the writer of White Lotus? Did you see his acceptance speech for the Golden Globe that he won? You should look at it, and when you win the Edgar, that's the speech you should give, because he just got up and pointed to the crowd and said, "You all passed on this TV show. You all could have made this TV show, and you didn't do it." He was like very drunk, and so if you win, you have full. I know you would never do it, but like you have full permission to do it.
That would just be too fucking poetic, man. That's just beautiful. And it is all so silly, man, this whole thing. And this is something, Jordan, you and I hit on when we talked at the Shop Talk interview. But talk, you have such great thoughts on this. Talk me through social media as a writer. Talk me through Twitter. Because when we talked, you were off. You were clean. You've been clean for a minute. And I know you're not clean anymore. And I'm not. I've been off at different times. I took the whole summer off, and just bounced the fuck away. I read a great book called, what was it called?
You guys are talking about it like it's a drug, and I think that's actually a good way to look at it.
It is.
Oh,
it is.
Yeah. The book is called, it's got Cal Newport. It's what the hell is that book called? Deep Focus. Yeah.
I've read Deep Focus. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like a, like a Silicon Valley, like self-help book deal, but there's some really great shit in there about like attention spans. It's kind of like a workout, how like you don't get the real benefits until like you get into it, and you can't have these short like jump off and do this and then come back to your writing. And so I did it, but my publicist called like at the end of the summer. Like he really called me, and he was like, "Where are you?" And that was one of the Cal Newport things. He was like, get off social media and see if anybody notices, like see if anybody even says anything. So I've really just turned it into like a segmented thing. Like, unless like today, like the Edgar was going on. And so like, I wanted to be cool and make sure, I was saying thanks to everybody and all that stuff. But, on a regular day, like I try to like have a time where I go in there and then that's it, and I go away from it. But where are you, man? And what are you have such good thoughts on this?
I mean, I think, like Patrick said, I think it is a drug, and I think it's one of the bad drugs because there's no ceiling to it. It's the difference between cocaine and heroin. Not that heroin's a good drug, but like heroin, there's a kind of a topping point.
Coke was for the old days. The boy.
Yeah, that's right. There's this. This is actually something that plays into my next book. There's Heraclitus, the inventor of modern pharmacology, had this statement, which is the poison's in the dose. There's no such thing as a poison other than the dose makes it so, which means that like one particle of cyanide isn't going to kill you, and drinking 3 gallons of water will kill you. Like there's no such thing as poison. There's only dosage. And the problem with, like, for me, Twitter, and this is like, again, what defines a problem for any kind of substance is the dose, is like, and I'm definitely in a place now, and I'm aware that I'm in it. And it's all been excused by the lead up to the book of like, I'm on Twitter way too fucking much, and it's not good for my brain. I'm starting to think none of this stuff is good for your brains. I think I'm starting to getting really suspicious of podcasts. I know we're on a podcast.
I was going to make a joke, but then he actually said it out loud. Get out of my head, Jordan.
And again, there's nothing wrong with it sometimes, but like I've gotten to where like, oh, if I'm walking my dog, I'm listening to a podcast. If I'm driving my car, I'm listening to a podcast. I'm not listening to music. I used to be a professional music writer. I don't listen to music as much as I used to. And it's just, again, this idea of like, we're all way overdosed on information. Like way overdosed on information. And I think that, and here's the other thing though, here's the flip side, is how many friends do I have? Like, it used to be you'd go to BoucherCon, which is the big crime fiction convention, and you would meet people. And now, and I like this better, honestly, is now I go and I meet the people who I've already met. Like I get to in person meet people who I have great friendships with. And there are, I had some of that before the internet, but like you do make friends, you do learn about movies you never would have learned about. I mean, news stories. I follow all these people who are like radical journalists in Los Angeles, and that's where I find out about a lot of the stuff that I write about. But man, it's not good for my brain, and it's not good for any of our brains, I don't think. But I know it's not good for mine. So I am preparing once the kind of everybody knows, and I'm about to start a new job in television. And I think that will also help me kind of break off it. Because right now it's like I write my book and then my partner Megan goes off to work because she's on a TV show. And then I'm just here and it's like, well, might as well. And it fucks with my ability to read for pleasure. That's the other thing. So I'm on it and I have no excuse. I think that's where I'm at right now, Yeah.
Well, I know, like when I was in those 2 months of nothing, like we live out on a lake, and so I take like a daily picture, of whatever, the sunset or the whatever. And I take long walks, around here. And I remember in the summer, I just leave my fucking phone like in the office and just go walk. And it was so freeing, because what a lot of my walks consist of now are looking for the shot, like what's going to be the shot today, to put on social media. And I think that's the metaphor for this whole thing. Like that's what, when you can, get off, or at least like my answer right now is this segmented kind of time. But yeah, it's not good. I mean, it has its good things, like you said, like that deal about meeting so many cool people and seeing stuff. But for deep thought, deep creative juice, like it doesn't help at all.
No, I think the other, like I said, I'm almost done with this rough draft of this book, and I feel like it's a book that's going to need a lot of revision because it's bigger. It has 3 narrators instead of just the 2 of everybody knows, and it's messier. It's not going to have that clockwork feel. I think it's there's a serial killer. It's like it's like 1 notch louder than everybody knows. But like, I think when I get into revisions, I'm going to use that as my excuse and say, no, I need more of my brain back. I can't. because and you said I forgot that I was like that when we talked, but like when you're clean, you don't miss it. Like you really don't. You want to know what's going on, but like the idea that like somewhere out in this universe there's an asshole and everybody's got to get mad at that asshole today, and that's what we're going to do, and we're never going to talk about this asshole again, and who is this guy? I don't know. But we're all furious, and then tomorrow we'll be furious about somebody else. Like that's not a thing you need in your life.
Well, you're so right about not missing it, man. I mean, that was the best thing, and one thing that book Deep Focus said was like the time you took away from it, and this self-help aspect of it, but fill it with like call somebody up that you don't talk to, like if you're going on that walk or whatever, or you would have been looking at your phone for the 20-minute ride into somewhere, like call somebody, talk to somebody, go out for lunch, do something, like fill that time with real interaction, or just fill that time being fucking bored, when the good stuff comes.
Well, I think that is the thing that is the worst, is that like that we're losing our tolerance for being bored. And like, you're supposed to be bored. You're supposed to be bored. Like the same way that you're supposed to be hungry before you eat. But like in America today, you're not hungry when you eat. You just eat because it's time to eat, or there's food, or there's Doritos or whatever. You're supposed to be bored, and then you're supposed to go out and find stimulation. Or you're supposed to think, instead of just having. I was out to lunch today with a friend, and I was just going to go to the bathroom just to take a piss, which is relevant to the story. I'm not just larding in detail about me needing to take a piss. And my phone was on the table. I started to walk to the bathroom, and I turned around because I was going to grab my phone, because I just had the impulse of course, while I'm taking a piss, I've got to look at my phone. And I did in the moment stop myself and go, no, I don't. Like I could go to the bathroom for fucking a minute and not look. I think about a thing I try and think about now when I think I'm online too much is like what, they always say you're going to see that movie of your life right before you die. And I just try and picture what that movie will look like, of just some guy going, just scrolling.
Jordan.
Just, like how, yeah, go ahead.
Bluey. The Australian Bluey. It's an Australian cartoon. It's for kids. So I've got a kid, 6 and 3, 2 kids. And it's the best damn show. It's like, it's about
it is.
It's about a blue healer and they're named Bluey and her family. But anyway, there's this episode called Bob Bilby, where like in the kindergarten class, they get to bring home like this little like hand puppet. And what they do is like they do all this shit like over the weekend, like, and then you take pictures of you and Bob Bilby, and then you put it in the kindergarten like scrapbook. And what they do the whole episode is like play on their iPad, watch TV, scroll through their mom and dad's phone, and they get to like Sunday afternoon, and the mom prints all the pictures off, and the two dog children are like looking at it, and they freak out, and they're like, no, like it's exactly what you just said, and then they throw the iPads in a little wicker basket and go, do Australian dog things and live their life.
That's awesome. I'll have to check that out. But yeah, that's the fear, right? It's just like man, and again, it's not you get that thing on your phone at the end of the week if you have an iPhone, where it'll be like, you spent 3 hours a day on your phone, and you go, I did what?
Yeah.
I did what? And I do think a lot of this, I think the real breaking point, to jump all the way back, was 2016 and how crazy, like the world was insane. Donald Trump was running for president, and I personally was like, well, obviously I'm addicted to my phone right now because this is the craziest thing that's ever happened. And soon the world will stop being crazy again, and I can just go back to life the way it was. And it turns out that never happened. And the world never went back, and I never got off my phone again, not in the way that I was. Then I think that really was the big shift between, sometimes I look at Twitter and like, no, I'm just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
Well, one like writer tip maybe, or one just tip is I've taken it off my phone. Like I've taken, and I just have it on my laptop, so that like I have to, now there's, if I take a picture, I have to like send it to my,
yes, I do the same thing. Yeah.
extra shit, you know, but like it keeps me from having it all the time, you know, having it right there.
Yeah. No, I do the same thing. And yes, you have to airdrop to your laptop when you want to show somebody a picture of. I was watching the original Cape Fear last night, and I wanted to put a picture of Robert Mitchum on Twitter, and it's a process. It's a process.
That's okay. You know, that's our problem. Everything's too easy. So a
Yeah.
little bit of a process.
Very much.
One thing you can ask yourself, not just you guys, but I do it for myself because I'm addicted to my phone, is do I actually give a shit what most of these people think? Like, it's not you guys. Like, I become friends with people, like cool guys. Like, I would love to meet you guys, or like Sean Cosby would be awesome, or you know, Joe Lansdale or Brandon and I've met a few times, and that was awesome. But like in general, do I give a shit when I'm walking down the street, and not even in a mean way? Just do I care who that person doesn't like? Nope. So why does it matter on the screen? And it shouldn't. That's what I try to remind myself.
Yeah, no, it's really good advice. And like, so Eli, do you look at your Goodreads reviews?
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah. You look at all of them?
Sadist.
It's
masochist.
You know, for She Rides Shotgun, I filtered by 5-star and only read the 5-star reviews because why not? That's a little treat for me. But this one, I've been reading all of them, and it's such a bad idea. I mean, I 1-star review of Everybody Knows of pure trash and just cliches and driving around Los Angeles. It's like, fuck you. Like, why do I? But I say, oh, fuck you. Did you know I was able to quote it verbatim? Yeah. Because it's living in my fucking head. Why do I? Who said that? I don't know.
I hope they're listening, Jordan. I hope they're.
But like,
Patrick, this is your idea. This is an idea, man. You need to end each one of these podcasts like with that. I can't remember what talk show it was where like they read mean tweets. You should read, like, choose a 1-star review, and at the end of every podcast, we should have to read them out loud. But no, I do.
I wish you suggested that, you bastard, because that sounds hilarious. But I don't have those on me.
Well, no, I'd read mine, and this is, I mean, like, I don't know. I think it goes back to like my athletic stuff, like football, and in some ways, man, it's like that same response like you had, like fuck you. And because there was so much rejection, like coming up, like, you know, it kind of feeds me in a way. Like I almost, you know, like I glaze over the 5-star ones and I look for the 1-star ones to like see what those like, so that I can be like, you know, like watch for my next trick, you know, watch this. Like that's how it like works on my end.
That's good. My honest opinion is that a 1-star review for anything just means the wrong person picked up the wrong thing. Yeah. That's all it means. It's because, and people take this. I put something on Twitter the other day where I found a really negative review of The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which was one of the novels that really got me into reading and wanting to be a writer. And people thought, like, I don't know what people thought I was saying, but what I was trying to say by doing that, because I like to read 1-star reviews of novels I love. And the thing to get across is sometimes you'll read one and you'll go, oh, that guy's a jerk or an asshole or an idiot. And sometimes you'll read something and you go, oh, right, if that's what you like, then this isn't the book for you, because there's no such thing as a book that is 5 stars for everybody. And that's useful to know. I personally, this is, you know, I have a my punk rock contrarian streak comes out like in like usually against the Suits, you know, so like usually, like, you know, I've talked a lot about how Everybody Knows came from LA Confidential not going to series, and me going, well, shit, I'll show you guys what a big LA epic crime is. But like, just somebody not liking my book, it does just bum me out. And I wish I had more of yours. And maybe I have that too. I do go, like, oh, fuck you, buddy. Oh, trash. You don't even know what trash is. Wait till you read my next one. But like, it's so sleazy. But like, but yeah, I don't, but to the point, you know, like Patrick's point is like, if that was just some guy on this, if I saw a picture of this guy and so I said, is this somebody whose approval you're seeking? My answer would absolutely be no. I don't care about that guy.
Well, I also find it really interesting to think about like what it takes for someone Well, I guess I found it like some of the like 1-star reviews on Don't Know Tough are like so guttural, that like I can almost take
Angry.
I can almost take a little pride that like my work didn't have maybe the intended effect on them, but boy, it had a fucking effect. Like it has crawled up in their ass, because I always think like what forces someone, or what goes into somebody and makes them like want to sit down and just bash some shit, like, I mean, I know we do it all the time and people do it all the time, but there's almost a little irony every time I read one, thinking like, who's this dude or chick, that's writing this.
I mean, I can't remember if this made it into the LA Times article, but I definitely talked about it with the LA Times reporter, like that I was a movie critic for a while. And then I detected something in myself that I really didn't like, which was I was giving negative reviews to stuff. And not like I wasn't like picking on great films or something, but I was writing them from the perspective of like, well, I could write this better. And I should, and I realized like that's a terrible position to be a critic from is frankly envy. It's just like straight up, I was envious of people making movies and I thought I could do it better. And if you have that feeling of I could do this too, the healthy thing is to go out and do it to prove that you're doing it. But like, just to be a critic who goes, well, they totally blew the second act break and they should have done blah, blah, blah. That's like the worst kind of thing that you can do. And I know that about myself. I know that I have had unkind thoughts about people when they're having a bunch of success, because I can be envious the way I think everybody can be at times. And like, it's not my favorite part of myself, but at least I recognize it and I'm trying to be better.
Yeah.
But like, there are a lot of people who are very angry at the world and who think that they've got to put that poison on somebody else. And that's it. A lot of times if somebody is frustrated by their place in life, they look at somebody, who maybe you're living your life. You just think you're a guy who publishes some books, but to a lot of people, it feels like you're a big, tall, mighty guy. Who do you think you are publishing books, and I got to let my dog in here. So I'm going to scratching at the door. But, I think that is like more people should recognize that in themselves when they get on the internet, and very few people do, I think.
Yeah. William Boyle, man, he has these three bullet points that he writes every day, like to start, like whatever he's going to sit down. And they are always be a fan first, make weird choices, and don't get bitter.
Mm.
And those are like his three like guiding principles. And at different points throughout this whole thing, like different ones of those have risen to the surface, and I've been like, shit, like that's some sensei shit, like they just hit me at different points. But that be a fan first, like on what we're saying here, anybody who's written a book, written 60 to 100,000 words and completed and written the end, on a novel, I think it would be harder, if you've done that, to trash anything, like to trash anything. Maybe not, but that's what I feel like when you're amongst writers. There is a sense of like, yeah, man, like you did the damn thing, like regardless of whether it fits my palate.
Yeah, I mean, we should all, that fan first thing. The way I heard it and the way I think about it is have a beginner's mind.
Yeah.
Which is like, remember what brought you to the show. Remember that feeling that you had, that you wanted when you first sat down to write a story. The stories that made. Possible. Pardon?
Anything is possible when you.
Yeah, and just like I learned that from this band Sun that I love. They do these heavy metal songs where it's just two guys with guitars and like literally 12 Marshall stacks, and they just do these big long chords, and it's like the heaviest thing in the world. And they said they got into this to make big, dumb, stupid, heavy metal. That's what they like. And now they're like this art, they're very fancy and they like play in art museums and they tour the whole world, and they just go, but we try and get up every morning and remember that we're here to make big, dumb, heavy metal. And I think that it's really easy to lose that, particularly because that's not how the internet thinks, and letting that internet cop into your head is like I feel like there's a real turn coming where people want to be entertained without it being stupid, but like they want to be entertained. They don't want to be lectured at or have somebody do something that is like chilly or austere. They want to be in the mud and dirt and stuff. I think that's great. I'm very excited about how I feel people are changing, but we're coming out of a real cop era on Twitter. So it's bad for your brain. I hope so.
I've definitely heard from, I don't know if they want me to name it, but I've definitely heard from writers that are seasoned veterans in both our arenas, crime, horror, fantasy, that you can already see this era of the, I don't know what the fuck the right word is, oversensitive. That's my word. And I think a lot of people are very oversensitive. And I don't think they really feel that way for the most part. I just think that they just get hooked because it's a fucking drug and they just go crazy with the other idiots, jump on board with them. They're like, yeah, let's fuck up somebody's life that we don't know.
I get, like 80% of Twitter is somebody with the big news story of, hey, everyone, I found an asshole. And like in the entire world, I was able to find an asshole. And here he is. You've never heard of him before, but don't you think he's an asshole? I'm really getting to like I'm trying to train my knee jerk thing on Twitter to be, if I see something that annoys me, mute the person, just mute them. And even if it's a retweet, don't care, mute it, just keep going. Don't never give in, never participate in any of that stuff because it's totally useless and worthless. And, there's just
graffiti cop quote, Jordan. Drop that graffiti cop quote.
Oh, it's there's a sleeping cop in all our minds and he must be killed.
What is it?
The last thing I'll say on this is, and that's a good quote. The last thing I'll say on this is, I think it's always kind of weird when you're like, hey, that person you call your friend, here's something they did. And that person all of a sudden isn't your friend. They're like, yeah, fuck that guy. One's nothing, crazy.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all experienced it. It's weird. It's weird to be an adult and experience that by other adults. It's a weird time.
It's just so weird. The whole thing. And again, it's like Twitter is a party that literally everybody in the world is invited to. And like, I hope this doesn't make me sound like a weird, person, but I really believe that we're different people with different people. There is no true Jordan Harper. There's, none of us have one singular person that we are. You're not you talk to your partner or your wife differently than you talk to your friends, and you talk to your friends differently than you talk to your boss. And when you're doing that, none of those are phony. Those are just different aspects of yourself. And you go on Twitter and all of a sudden you're supposed to be just one person that's acceptable somehow simultaneously to everyone in the world. And it's completely false and fucked up. And the old internet wasn't like this. The old internet, you were on your Super Mario's chat board and everybody was there to talk about Super Mario, and there would still be big fights and stuff, but at least everybody knew I am here to be a Super Mario fan and that's what we're doing here. And I'm not a Super Mario fan. I don't know why I chose that, but
sure.
But Twitter is supposed to be, again, for everybody all the time. And that's just not how the fucking world works.
No, you're delusional dumbass if you think everyone's going to accept you. Eventually, I'm stealing this from Game of Thrones. We're all a spoke on the wheel, not poke. We're all a spoke on the wheel. And eventually, we're going to hit the dirt. Don't be surprised when you get mud in your mouth. That part's mine. George Martin.
But that's what I mean about going back to the 1-star reviews. It's the same thing. I know what kind of book I just wrote. It would be weird if everybody liked it. If everybody liked it, I wouldn't have done my job, because it's first of all, there's the 1 stars for profanity people, which is just wild to me. But every book I have has 1-star reviews. Didn't care for the profanity, and it's oh, okay, but the hammer party with the fucking brains on the wall, that was okay. But it's the fact that I said fucking in that sentence is what bothers you. I don't know how to talk to a person who thinks that way. I have nothing in common with a person who thinks that way. Like, what am I? I'm certainly not writing books for them. And
No.
you know, it's,
But, uh, you, so imagine you don't know tough, and I'm at like my hometown, like releasing the book, and there's literally like 200 people that are like little old ladies in my mom's Sunday school, and like my elementary school teachers, and they're coming up, to buy the book, and I'm sliding it across the table to them like like thank you, but that is being like where I grew up, like right here, like as these things are coming out, it's and I mean I was the fucking quarterback, for the high school so there's a whole that part has been strange, like off of what you're just saying.
It's I was talking to Sean Cosby the other day about his ability that I'm so impressed by, that he writes what he writes and he has still captured the little old lady audience.
Yeah.
And you're like, how the fuck did you do that?
Yeah. You got to how does he what's the magic?
I don't know. That's his magic. I don't have it.
They probably saw him in person, because if you meet Sean and you hear him and you're around him and you get that big ass smile and all that warm glow, like then it don't matter. Like they can look over I mean, Sean will be in an interview or be talking. He'll be like, man, I don't want to cuss. And he'll say like effing or something. And then and then 3 sentences later, he'll drop an F-bomb, And it's just beautiful, man. He's just a beautiful human being.
No, it's true. He is, and he's also he's the best author I know. Like who embodies like the thing that people want authors to be.
Yeah.
And the exact opposite of what somebody might think. I mean, like he's not snotty or highfalutin or anything. It's the exact opposite. But he talks about things in a way that sounds so grand and eloquent, and he's so spellbinding. And like when we were at VoucherCon, I just had several times leave him behind. Like you would abandon somebody at war because like he had a line of people. Yeah, a clump of people would clump around him, and it's all right, Sean. I gotta go. I have a thing, but like bless. I mean, it's awesome. It's terrific for him, but it was just like so intense. But he's made for the moment.
I think it comes from the fan stuff, like the fact that he's a fan of so many authors, so many good, like you can tell that it's all genuine because of his fandom, because he's so enmeshed in all these different things. He's not just bullshitting. He's not just halfway, talking about something he doesn't know anything about. It's all so genuine, and that's what I don't know how he does it, but like I don't know how he does all that. But
no, I don't either. But it's really impressive.
He does have encyclopedia knowledge with books. Guys, we're gonna wrap up now. I'd like to know, Jordan, where can people follow you?
Well, as of right now, Twitter is still the place to find me. I have my newsletter, which I'm so bad at updating, I haven't sent out the everybody knows has been published letter yet, which I probably should have done literally a week ago. But it's called Welcome to the Hammer Party. And, I made a deal with myself early on that I was going to write it when I felt like it. And so it hasn't been updated recently, but like, that you can find me there. You can find me on Twitter. Everybody knows is out. If it's not at your bookstore, yell at your bookseller. And I'm going to be doing some tour stuff in the near future. If anybody wants to come out and see me next week, speaking of Sean S.A. Cosby is going to be here in Los Angeles. We're going to be at Vroman's bookstore in Pasadena. Off the air, I will tell you guys, the people who are showing up, this is going to be all I'll say is the most famous people will not be the ones on stage. And I said this on Twitter today, but like as wild as a book signing in Pasadena can be, this is going to be wild. And So I'm doing that. I'm going to be at the Poison Pen at the end of the month in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm going to be at the Tucson Book Festival in February. I'm going to be at Left Bank Books in St. Louis on February 9th. So, doing a little tour, but not a lot. But until I am whole and clean and pure, you can find me on Twitter.
Eli, how about you, man?
Yeah, man, Twitter. I got a Facebook, but I don't ever that like a Facebook author thing. But you can see a picture of the sunset on Twitter every day. Go follow me. That's all I do.
Brandon, where can people follow you?
I also am not pure, so you can find me on Twitter as well, and other platforms, all at Brendan LaFaro.
You can follow me at PR McDonough on Twitter. Follow the show at Headspace, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. And seriously, pick up everybody. Well, for those watching, everybody knows Jordan Harper. If you don't, well, you're not in the club. And then also Don't Know Tough by Eli Cranor. Both excellent books. The next episode is 185. That'll be with CJ Tudor. We'll talk about her book, The Drift. And as always, you have many choices in podcasts. Thank you for picking us.